Using the might of Elementor and Crocoblock JetEngine, we're going to be able to build a really cool, powerful, dynamic calendar for your website. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the very basics all the way to the advanced stuff. So let's get started. Before we get started with the tutorial, you're obviously going to need a few things. Number one is going to be obviously Elementor Pro. You need the Pro version in order to make this happen. You're also going to need the dynamic calendar widget from Crocoblock. This allows you to input dynamic data into the calendar in order to display it on the front end. Now, this calendar widget comes with or is part of their JetEngine suite, which is just an amazing tool. I recommend it to everybody that's using Elementor because it lets you do an infinite number of advanced stuff, including creating your custom post types, just an infinite number of things. So for $43 per year, you get a lot of value out of the widget. Make sure you use the link in the description down below if you do decide to purchase, because any purchase that you make allows my channel to grow. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do right after you reinstall Elementor and JetEngine is go into the left hand side here on the WordPress navigation items, and then we're going to choose JetEngine. There's two modules we want to make sure we have activated in order for this to work. The first one is called the calendar widget, which is the one we talked about earlier in the video. And the second one is the dynamic visibility widgets and sections for just some more of the advanced stuff we're going to do a little bit later on. So make sure you have those two things activated in your application. Make sure you hit save. I always forget to hit save when I create these tutorials, and I end up having to recreate the video sometimes. All right, so we hit save, and that's working now. After that, we're going to go to pages, and we're going to create our first page. Now, because this is a restaurant website, Juicy Bite is a great restaurant in Naples, Florida. We're going to create an event calendar for the restaurant. So let's go ahead and click on Add New here for the pages. And we're going to create an events calendar page. And we're going to hit Publish on the top side. Then we're going to click on the Edit with Elementor button to go into the Elementor builder. Once it's finished loading, we're going to go ahead and modify the title here on the top hand side because we're going to create our own titles later on. So we want to make sure we hide this title. Now we're just doing this, just some prep work, so we have all the basics down. So the next thing we're going to want to do is just throw in the calendar widget so we have it ready to go when we go back in this page. We're going to click on container, and we're going to go ahead on the top, just add a little bit of spacing so it's not flushed up against the header of the page. Let's click on update. And for now, we're done with this page. The last thing we're going to want to do just for the basic housekeeping is go to appearance, go to menus, and add our events calendar to the main navigation of the website, just to make sure that it loads up whenever we need to access it. So let's refresh the site, and here's the events page in the main menu, as well as the calendar widgets at least showing to select the listing in order for it to display on the site. So we have all our basics covered, and now we're ready to move forward to the more advanced section of the tutorial, which is to start adding the dynamic data and putting in the calendar information. So let's start doing that next. So let's go into JetEngine again, and then we're going to go into our post types. And this is the area where we're going to start creating post types for our dynamic section. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's click on Add New to create a post type. If you do not know what a custom post type is, what a meta field is, or even taxonomies are within WordPress, then you want to make sure that you go back and watch a tutorial on taxonomies and custom post types, because it's going to make your life around a little bit easier when you're dealing with building this kind of page within Elementor or JetEngine. So the post type is going to be a custom post type. So we're going to call this events because we want to create a post type that's just pulling event information. So we go ahead and call that events. We're going to go scroll down to labels, and then we're going to also choose the singular name. So whenever there's one event, it's going to just say event. So we're going to tab along all the labels so it creates the labels for us the way we want them to be created. And then under advanced settings, really there's two things that I like to change when it comes to custom post types, and that is the icon. So for this one's going to be, let's just type in calendar. It's not pulling up the calendar. And then we're going to choose this one. This one looks a little bit more like a calendar. We don't want to use the built-in editor from WordPress because we want this to be much more simpler than that. So we're going to remove the editor, but we are going to add the excerpt, and we are going to add the thumbnail. We want to make sure we have a feature image. Let's go ahead and create the post type. And on the left-hand side, you'll see now we have our events here on the left with a nice little calendar icon. Now for every event that we create on the site, we're going to need a couple things. We're going to need a description for the event. We're going to need the address of the event. So let's say you're even like you're a restaurant, you only have one location. You may have, you may sponsor a market, or you may do an event outside of the restaurant. So you want to make sure you still have an address field located there. That way, in case you need to put that the event takes place outside of the restaurant, it's all shown within the event detail page. Aside from that, when you think about events, there's multiple kinds of events. You're going to have events that take place only one day, and you have events that take place over multiple days. So I highly recommend that you create a start date and an end date for all of your events. Now, for the use case for you, they're all just, you want to use your calendar just to create specials, where it's every Thursday something happens. Like every Thursday it's happy hour from 5 to 6, and it doesn't really matter. Then you can just create a start date. So it's really up to you and the use case of either your client or for your own purposes. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and create the first meta field. So we talked about that we're going to need a description. So we're going to type in description. For this one, it's going to be an area where there's going to be more information. So we're going to put a what you see is what you get field. And then we're going to go ahead and add another meta field, which is going to be the address. And we're going to use this address also to create a map as well. So we'll go through that as well. Let's hit on edit update, edit post. So now we have address and we have description. So the next thing we're going to create is going to be the start date. And this is automatically populated. And then for the field type, we're going to select daytime. Now, if you're only doing long day events, or this calendar is more like an event calendar where it's like 5 days till Christmas, whatever, you can still use this. It would just probably better to that you use date instead of daytime. But if you pick the daytime field, you're going to have not only just the date calendar where you can choose from, but you also be able to select the slider, the time, and I'll show you that in a minute to see what I mean. Because we're going to be doing sorting, you want to make sure that you click on save as timestamp. Otherwise, none of this is going to work. And then the start date is going to be required. And then now also let's add the end date. And same thing is going to be daytime. We're going to save that as a timestamp, and it's also going to be required. Perfect. Okay, let's look at our post types now and see what it's looking like. So let's click on events. And then let's add a new event. So I have some that I already have kind of ready to go. So I'm just going to populate it if you just bear with me. So we're going to choose the date, and I'm going to put an address. And then this is going to be a Halloween party. So it's going to be from 7 to 11. And here's a little time thing that I was talking to you about. So it's going to be till 11. And then let's put a short description. I always like to have a short description because a lot of times this helps with SEO. Sometimes it's what the program uses to populate the meta tag. So here's the picture of Halloween. Okay, so I added 3 events just to kind of showcase what this looks like. As you can see, we have a coffee tasting week, we have a rock concert, and we have a Halloween party. But if you notice here, we have a lot of garbage that comes from our SEO plugin that we don't need. So let's just clean up this by going into our screen options, removing all this stuff because it's not necessarily needed for our purposes. Okay, so now we have the date it was published, we have the title. Now it'd be nice to have a few more things on this view, such as the start date and end date, as well as a thumbnail that represents the event, just so we can visually kind of look at things a little bit easier. So let's work on doing that now. So we're going to go back into JetEngine. We're going to click on post types. We're going to go ahead and click on the event section and then scroll all the way down to the admin columns. This is where we can add those little columns within that field view. So we're going to head and add new. We talked about adding a start date. And this is the title that would show up on top of the column. So we're going to choose, instead of the meta value, let me show you what happens when you click on the meta value. So we're going to click on start date, and for the field name, this is the name where it's going to get the data from. So it's going to be this one here. If you click on start date, it's going to be this name. So we're going to select that, copy it, and paste it here. And then now this is going to be sortable. So we're going to make sure we add that, and we're going to hit an update post. So now let's go back to the event view here, just to show you what shows up. So now we have the start date showing up here, which is what we want. However, you'll see that instead of showing you the date in a nice format like October 31st for the Halloween party, it's showing you the timestamp. And we don't want that, obviously. So I'm going to show you how to fix that in a moment. So let's go back to JetEngine, post types again, click on edit for events. And then I'm going to show you how to fix that. Let's go back to admin columns, start date. And instead of choosing the type meta values, we're going to go into a custom callback. And then you're going to select from the existing callbacks. And then this one here is going to take any date that comes from a timestamp, and it's going to allow you to make format it to however you want. So let's choose JetEngine custom CB date. And again, this is going to be the field name. So it's going to be start date. So you'll see here that you have some formatting. So this is going to be the month written out. This is going to be the day, and this is going to be the year. Let's hit apply. And then we are going to, says here by field. So sort can be done only by meta value. So this is again going to be the timestamp. So we're going to want to go back into start date. Make sure we select start date. And then we're going to go ahead and add that here. So it's going to show you the value formatted, but you still have to tell it what date to use the actual number in order for it to go ahead and sort it the way you want it. So let's hit update post type, and then we're going to take start date and just duplicate it, because as you know, it's basically the same thing. It's just going to be called end date. So we're going to go ahead and call this end date, and then we're going to replace start date with end date. That'll make things go a little bit faster for you. Scroll back to the bottom here and make sure you choose end date, hit update. And then the last thing we talked about was just selecting showing the thumbnail. So we're going to call this featured image, and then we're going to do yet another custom callback, and this time we're going to select render image because we want to render an image in that section. And then it's going to just be the thumbnail, which is a feature image, and we're going to hit apply. And that one doesn't need to be sorted. You're going to hit update post. We're going to come back here one more time to start date, and we're going to go down to the bottom, and under column order, we're just going to change the order that these show up. So we have the published date at the end. So hit update post. And then now let's go back to the event section. And now we should have the start date, end date, the titles on the end. So we're going to have to replace that a little bit. And then you have the image. So let's go back and change some of the ordering real quick to fix that. Let's go back to events. And then we're just going to make start date the second column, end date the third column, and then feature image the fourth column, and that should fix the ordering that we had previously. So let's see, click on all events. So now we have the title, the start date, the end date, the feature image, and then let's test the sorting functionality. So now you see November The end date is going from October to November 11th. And if you click at it again, it's going to go from November to October. So we have the sorting the way we want it, the title the way we want it, and we have the feature image the way we want. So we have pretty much all the setup that we need ready to go. Okay, so we have basically all the backend set up. We're now going to move forward and show you the front end, how to get the front end built. So if you remember, you're going to want to basically display content within each little, within the date of each container here. So we're going to do kind of the same. We're going to do an image, and then we're going to kind of want to put the name of the event underneath the image to kind of represent what's going on that day. So the way you do that with JetEngine and Crocoblock is that you're going to go into the JetEngine section of the backend, and we're going to go into listings. Okay, so we're going to create a new listing item, and this time is going to be a post, right? We're creating a post, a custom post called events, and we're going to choose the event type, which is going to be events, the post type called events. Then we're going to give it a name. We're going to call it calendar listing view. We're going to create the listing item, and then this is going to take you to essentially the Elementor builder. And what you're going to be using this for is to build, again, like I mentioned, this little container within the calendar. So you got to keep that in mind. So let's go into that. First thing I like to do is go to settings, listing items, and then make sure it's set to posts, events. And then we're going to make the preview width a little bit smaller. We're going to make it 350. Okay, it might even need to be a little bit smaller. 300. There we go. I'm going to hit update. And then, like I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and add an image. And then we are going to, once you add an image via the image widget, we're going to click on the edit container, and we're going to make sure there's no padding around it and no margin around it, because we want it flush from left to right. Next, we're going to go back into the image, make sure it's selected, and then we're going to choose a feature image in order to make sure that when we create the calendar, it's pulling the right image. So we're going to go to the dynamic tags icon, and we're going to choose feature image. Here we go. And then we're going to make sure we use a medium size is fine, because these things are not going to be too long. So we want to make sure it doesn't take too long to load. We're going to go ahead and link the image to a custom URL, and then we're going to choose the post URL. So make sure that that links to the individual post with the details. So hit update. And the next thing we want to do is just add the name of the event. We're going to add that underneath the image. We're going to click on dynamic tags, and we're going to choose post title. This is going to put the post title, or the event title in our case, in order for it to show up. Obviously, this text is a little large, so we're going to go into typography and choose smaller text. I would say let's choose, for our purposes, around 12, maybe 14. You can always play around with this and, make sure you use the size that you like, make sure you use the typography you like, but for our purposes, to keep this simple and fast, we're going to just make it look a tiny bit better. Let's put 10. All right, let's see how this looks, and then we can always go back in here and change it. So once we're happy with the results, actually I want to make Coffee Tasting Week also a link. So we're going to go into the heading, click on content, link URL. We're going to choose dynamic tag, post URL, hit update. And because this is not really heading, we're going to make sure the HTML tag is something smaller, like the H6, or just a paragraph. Actually, it's just a div. There you go. Perfect. Hit update, and we're good to go. So now we're going to exit out of this view. This is going to be the calendar listing view. So now, so far we created the inside area. Now we're going to actually work on the actual calendar itself. So let's go into the page. If you remember, we created a page called the calendar view. So it's called the events, and we're going to hit edit with Elementor. Okay, so while we were waiting for this to load, because it took a little while for it to load, something happened, which I think is important for you guys to see, because I completely forgot about it. You'll notice now that Elementor is not loading. You have this is stuck. and then eventually you'll get a safe mode enable disable feature, section here. And the reason this happened is that when we created, see here we go, can edit, enable safe mode. What's happening is that when we created, let's go back here. Let's go back to the dashboard. And this might happen to you. When we created the page, this page was called events. And if you look at the shortcode of the page, it's called events, which also happens to be the page when you click on it. This is actually the page, the archive page that gets created whenever you create a custom post type. So that's why this didn't load for me. So there's two ways that we can fix this. We could make the archive page the page for events, which is I think what I'm going to end up doing. Or you could just create, rename the page on the pages side. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and leave this, because in the future I wanted to make like a listing grid, more of a just events listed one after another. I can just use events for that. So let's just go ahead and rename events to events calendar. And then we're going to go ahead and change the permalink to events calendar and hit update. Perfect. And then we're going to just double check the menu and make sure it's using the new link. So let's go ahead, make sure it says events calendar. Perfect. And let's go ahead and refresh the server. And now it says events calendar. And then this is showing correctly. And now if we're going to go ahead and try to edit this page and see what happens. All right, so now it's loading. So I wanted to leave that in because I think it's important that you guys are able to troubleshoot. So I thought it was important to leave that in there. Let me know if you think it's helpful. I think it is, but I thought I would leave it in. So let's go ahead select the calendar widget that shows up here. And then from the listing, we're going to select calendar listing view, which is the one we just created. And then really quickly, as you can see, the plugin is able to generate the calendar without us having to do nothing, which is really cool. So let's make this calendar look a little bit better, because right now it's a little messy. But as you can see, it's already pulling the events here on the right hand side, though they don't seem to be pulling in the correct place. And I'll show you why that's happening now. Let's just hide this temporarily. Let's close this just so you can see a little bit better. So the first thing we're going to want to do is take a look on this side. It says group post by post publication date. So that's the reason that they're showing up, because they were just created today. So this is the date that is using to populate. So we're going to change that and create a date from custom field, right? Because we created a custom field. And then if you remember, it's going to be called start date. So now you'll see that it's populating the image in the right location. So you have the Halloween party on the 31st, and then you have the rock concert on the 2nd. Now, if you remember, the way that we created this was to allow for multi-day events. So we're going to make sure that we select yes. And then we're going to choose the end date for that as well. So then now, if we click on the next month, you'll see here that now we have an image for the coffee tasting week show up every single day, which is exactly what we want. This is looking already phenomenal. So let's just make a few more tweaks just to make sure it looks nice and pretty. And we are almost done creating this, which is pretty cool, at least this part. Go ahead and hit style, and Elementor and the Crocoblock dynamic calendar widget gives you a few more layout options. I think some of them are a little bit better, in particular number 3 and number 4, because you have the date in the center and you have arrows left and right. So let's go ahead and make the arrows a little bit larger. And then let's go ahead back to the caption and choose the background color to be the primary color, the label to be white, and we're going to choose the text so it's a little bit bigger. So we're going to choose the descriptor text. And then for the arrows, we want to make them white as well. So let's make sure we choose white. And that's a little bit better. And then for the days of the week, we're going to go ahead and change the color as well. We're going to choose light yellow, so that looks a little bit nicer. So I'm pretty happy with this so far. You can always modify through CSS or through any other means if you want to change the color, if you wanted to change the size of the image. For all intents and purposes, I just want to show you how to set it up so it looks good. One more important thing to do is preview this on the tablet mode and see what you're looking at. So right here, as you can see, in tablet mode, you're not able to see the days. Or even if you go to mobile day, you don't see anything happening on any of these events, none of these days. So we're gonna make sure that we trigger the mobile trigger color, and we're gonna make the orange, and now it shows you when an event's happening on those days. So make sure you go ahead and take a look at this because you want to make sure you activate that feature. Same thing for tablet. As you can see, now it's showing you something's happening on those days. Let's go ahead and hit update. And let's preview this on the actual website. So now we're going to refresh the event calendar page. And then now we have our calendar showing up. Perfect. This is really looking really good. Here you have November, including the week tasting offer. So we're going to click on, let's click on the Halloween one. And as you can see, there's no information here. So we're going to want to create a custom post type page, single page, in order to be able to put the Halloween party information. This is the last piece of the puzzle in making this whole thing work. So let's go ahead and go back to our editor and exit out of the calendar because we're pretty much done here. And let's head now to Elementor, and we're going to go to Templates, Theme Builder. We're going to create a single post. I'm going to click on plus. Then we're going to X out of this preview window. And now we're taken to the editor. So really fast, let's go to settings, and we're going to call this the default event listing, or let's call it event detail page. A little bit more descriptive. The status is going to be published. Leave the page layout alone. HTML tag is fine for now. Other preview settings, we're going to choose, it's going to be an event. And then we're going to use Halloween in order to test. Let's go ahead and choose Halloween party, apply and preview. Right now there's no content, so you're not going to see anything, but that's fine. Again, for setup purposes, we're going to hit update. We're going to say, where do you want to display your template? We're going to add a condition, and we're going to choose a post. And it's going to be, oops, it's going to be an event. Where is event? Events. And we're going to choose all events. So this page template is going to be applied to all single page events. So hit save and close. Let's give it a second. Okay, so now it's done saving. So now let's build the page that we wanted to create. So we're going to want to put in the post title, and this is going to populate Halloween party, which is what we want. It's going to be an H1 tag, which is great. It's going to go on to style or typography. We're going to put page headline, and then we're going to go ahead and give it a little bit of room upstairs, kind of like how we did for the calendar. So it's not at the very top. So here we have Halloween party. And we're going to just pull in all the different meta fields as well. So let's pull in, let's put the navigator back up, where this is going to be the start date. And we're going to click on, oops, remove that. We're going to choose dynamic tag. We're going to go down all the way to the bottom, custom field. And we're going to choose start date. And as you can see, this is again a timestamp. So we're going to fix that in a second. So let's go to close that out. Let's delete this. And we're going to use the dynamic field that comes with JetEngine. And then from here, we're going to choose metadata, and we're going to choose start date. Again, this is going to have a, it's going to look like a timestamp as well, but the cool thing about JetEngine, it lets you customize the field output. And then here we're going to choose a callback to format the date as well. So here automatically, as you can see, we put in the correct date. Now the last thing we're gonna want to do here for this date field is we want to make sure we add the time. So if you go to, I'll put the link down below, the PHP manual, you'll be able to see all the different kind of formats that you can use when you want to create a date. So you can follow any of these in order to be able to change the formatting however you like. So for our purposes, we're going to go ahead and add the hour and for the event. So let's go ahead and do that first. We're going to add the time, which is going to be the hour. We're going to use the 12-hour format with latent 0. So it's going to be a lowercase h. We're going to put that here. Here you see already it's 7 o'clock. And we're going to go ahead and find the minute one, which is going to be I. Put a colon. Here's the minutes. And we're going to put whether it's PM or AM. So let's look for that. Right here, we're going to use lowercase, so it's going to be the A. Perfect. So we have now the start date and time. We're going to hit update. We're going to duplicate this field because we're going to do the same for the end date as well. So we're going to choose end date, and automatically, boom, it's done. You're good to go. We're going to create one. We're going to add a container as well here. Let's add another container outside. And we're going to go ahead and make this container go from left to right. And we're going to add the dynamic fields in here. So we're going to add the end date and the start date inside this container so we can put them next to one another. There we go. Perfect. So we have start date and end time next to each other. Perfect. Now, as you'll notice that there is, if you go preview this page now, that you have no context where these two dates are. So what I'll do is I'll add a little hyphen between the two. And the way that I can do that is two ways. I can add it to the end date and just under the field format, just add a little slash, correct? And then we'll just remove the spacing between both fields by going to advanced and then adding a negative margin to the left. Not too much. Not too much. Perfect. It's a little bit more. There we go. So now when we refresh the page, this makes a little more sense. So Halloween party from October 31st from 11 p.m. to 7 p.m. Wait, did I do that wrong? Yes, it's from this one to this one. So let's change that one to start, this one to end. There we go. That makes a little more sense. There we go, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. So what happened was that when I moved them from here to here, I forgot to note which one was which. And what you can do is you can click on that and then rename this to start date and end date. So you have a better idea of what each one is when you're moving them around. Okay, the next thing we want to add is another container. And this one's going to have the description. So it's going to be, whoops, not post content, sorry. Text editor. And this, we're going to click on dynamic tag. We're going to go to custom post types, custom field, and then we're going to choose description. That's going to put the information from the Halloween party. And then we're also going to put in the image. So we're going to choose feature image. Here we go. It's the picture we want, large. Not much else we need to do there. And then the last piece of the puzzle is a map, because we want the Google Maps to show up when you're looking at this page. So once we add in the map widget on their location, we're going to click on dynamic tag. We're also going to go back to custom field, and we're going to choose the address field. And that should populate the map like so. Perfect. Let's zoom in a little bit more so you can actually see a little bit better. And then let's change the height to 500 so we can really see the map. Perfect. Hit update. And let's take a look and see how the page looks on the front end. Okay, you have the image. Let's make the image go 100% width. Under large, let's put full. On the style, let's put 100% width, max width 100%. So this is going to make it go from the end, from each end of the container. So you don't have this space that you see here on this particular page. Perfect. Well, there we go. So we have the title, the time, we have the image, we have the description, and we have the map. And then what I would recommend we do is just add a back button so you can get back to the calendar. So we're going to go ahead and add a button. Add it to the very end. We're going to center it. And we're going to choose large. And we're going to write here, back to calendar. Back to calendar. Let's add a little icon. Oops. All right, let's test everything, make sure everything's working the way we want it. So let's go to the event calendar. We're going to click on rock concert. Here's the rock concert image, description, map, back to calendar. And there you go. That's basically the calendar in a nutshell. So it's like I said, pretty simple. A few steps to take care of, but it works really well. So now if you want to stop here, that's fine. I want to show you one more cool thing that you can do with Crocoblock as well. And probably every event calendar should have. So if you want to see that, stay tuned to the end. Let's get into that now. There is one important feature that you do want when you're creating a calendar for your website, and that's the ability for somebody to be able to add that calendar entry into the Google Calendar or Apple Calendar. Right now in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do it for Google Calendar, but you can always replicate the steps in order to create the version for Apple Maps. So Google does, Elementor has built-in add to calendar feature. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for dynamic content. So let's go ahead and edit that post. And then let me show you real quickly how to do that in case you had a static event on your website and you wanted to take advantage just real quick of this feature. So you would type in add to calendar for the text. Under the link section, if you click on dynamic tags, you'll see something called contact URL. If you click on that, you'll see that you have an option for Google Calendar, and this will open up a widget where you can manually select a date. You can manually put in description, location, and title. But when you have dynamic content, this just doesn't work. So let me go ahead and delete this, hit update, and show you how to do it in a dynamic way. Since we're using JetEngine, we'll be able to take advantage of their dynamic link widget. So we're going to type in dynamic, find the one that says dynamic link, and we're going to drag that into our layout. We're going to substitute the read more label for add to calendar. We're going to go down to where it says field icon, and we're going to select a calendar for our icon. Here we go. I wonder if there's one with a plus. Let me look real quick. Here we go, even better. Let's insert that one. And then we are going to go into the style to kind of make it look more like a button. We're going to go background type. We're going to choose a color. In this case, it's going to be orange. And we're going to change the color of the text. This replaces both the icon and the text, but if you wanted to change the icon individually, you could as well. But we don't need to do that. Let's add some padding around it so it has a little bit more room. And then we're going to give it a little bit of a gap to from the button to the text. And then when we hover over, we're going to go scroll to the top and just have a little bit of a color change just so it looks a little bit nicer. Okay, so that's looking already a lot better. Looks like a button, and it looks like an add to calendar button. So that's looking good. So let's go back to content, and this is where kind of the magic happens for this particular implementation. All right, so the first option we're going to check on is going to be the add query argument. And I don't necessarily blame you if you had to go back a few times to review the video, because this implementation can change, or it's a little bit complex. So depending on what you're doing. So I'm going to paste in the template that kind of Google Calendar expects as the link. So you have the URL, which is this here. And then you have the variables that you're passing in. So which is action equals template, and text equals whatever text, and dates equals this, and it's actually expecting the then end date and the start date. So let me put those in there. And then it's going to expect the location and the description. Okay, location and description are optional. I would say location for sure you should add, and description can always be an excerpt or a smaller version of the description. Okay, we're not going to worry about description. Once I teach you how to do location and title, you'll be able to do the rest. I just want to keep things a little bit more simple. So this is what it expects. I'll put this URL that it expects on the description of the video to make things a little bit easier for you, as well as some of the other stuff that I'm going to post on here. So just look at the description and make sure that you take a look at that. So for now, we're going to just remove this, and we'll come back to this in a minute. See, update. So the source is going to be a permalink, but this permalink is going to be coming from the options menu, and we're going to create that now. That way you can always create a Google, Outlook, and an Apple link, and then just populate in the different query arguments that you need. So let's jump back up to the dashboard, go down to JetEngine, and then now we're going to create an options page. We're going to click that, and we're going to call this calendar links. Everything else you can kind of leave by default, and then we can just use, the calendar, maybe just call a link like that. And then we are going to go ahead and do the two fields. The first field is going to be a Google Calendar link. It's going to be text. Let's hit add page. And then just to show you what it would look like when it has a different kind of calendar, I'll just show you what it would look like on the website. So, all right, so we created those two sections, and then on the top hand side, you'll see here now something called calendar links. So we're going to go ahead and click on that, and we're going to paste in the first part of our URL that's required. So as you'll see, this is the first part of the template link, or the link that Google Calendar kind of expects. All right, again, I'm going to post this link down below, so you can just paste it into your implementation. So we're going to go ahead and hit save. And if you had an Outlook calendar link, you can also paste it here as well. So let's go ahead and go to the Elementor templates, theme builder, and we're going to select the event detail page and hit edit. Okay, awesome. So now when we go to add to calendar, which is a dynamic link, we're going to go to options, and we're going to select the Google Calendar link. So this will automatically populate. If you look in the bottom left hand corner, it shows you that the link that we pasted is the link that's going to be on there now. So let's go ahead and hit preview. And then if we click on this, you see that now it's going to show you the calendar, but it's going to have the current date and time, which is not what you want. It doesn't have a location, doesn't have a description, it doesn't have a title. So let's close out of this and go back here. We're going to open a new page. We're going to go to dashboard, and then now we're going to head to JetEngine, and then here we're going to talk a little bit quickly about how to generate the shortcodes that we're going to need for our implementation. So let's go back to the event detail page, click on the calendar, and then here on their add query arguments, this is where the magic is going to happen. So let's paste in the rest of what is needed. So the first thing we're going to need is the title, which is going to say text. So the way we're going to get this is we're going to type in one of the built-in macros that JetEngine gives you. So in order to do title, you just type in percentage title, and that's going to auto-populate the title for the event. I'm going to hit update. I'm going to show you that real quick. So we're going to go to the event. And then if you hover over, and we're going to click on that, you see that now it shows Halloween party up here. So that one's pretty straightforward and simple. So will the description, and so will the location. So we're going to leave that one. All right, so now for the, let's go now look at the location. So we're going to go into the shortcode generator. We're going to choose metadata, and we're going to choose location, address. All right, and this is going to give us a shortcode, as you can see down below. Okay, we're going to take this shortcode, we're going to paste it, copy it and paste it. We're going to go to the macros, because remember, we're generating macros that are going to populate here. We're going to go to macros, and there it says select macros to paste. We're going to be going all the way to the bottom, and it's going to be a shortcode result, which is the shortcode that we generated here. I'm going to click on that. We're going to paste in the shortcode, and then it's going to give you the shortcode that you the macro that you're going to put inside here. So we're going to go ahead and go to location and put in the macro. Hit update. We're going to go pull the open up the page. And then now when we click on it, we see that now we have the address. All right. So it's pretty simple, but it does take a little bit of, you have to think very clearly and make sure you're pasting things in the right location. Okay. This is very important. Okay. So now for the date. The date is a little bit complex, so I'm going to try to go as slowly as possible. Google expects basically this format here. So you're going to need the 4 years, numerical value, month, day, then the word T, hour, minute, and seconds. Okay, so that's kind of the format that they needed in order to generate the right, basically, date in the calendar link. Okay, so that's how you do it. Then you also have a slash, like I mentioned earlier, and then you have this repeated again. Okay, that's kind of what they expect. So we're going to try to recreate that using the shortcode generator and the macro generator. So let's go back into the shortcode generator. We're going to start with that. And we're going to choose metadata again. We're going to choose start date. And then we're going to use the customize field output. Click on that. And as you can see, that's going to give you this S. And then if you filter the field output, then you can apply a callback. We did this callback kind of feature earlier in the tutorial. So we're going to kind of mimic what we did there. So we're going to add a new item, and we're going to do the format date. Now, if you recall from a few seconds ago, Google expects this format to be in a specific way, which is 4 years, 4-year numerical value, month, day, and so on and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and do that now, and this would be what you would need to use. So it's exactly this. You're going to have year, lowercase m for month, the / to kind of break out of the formatting and print this specifically as a T. And then you have hour, minutes, and seconds. So we're going to go ahead and copy this. Okay, and then we're going to go to the macro generator, and we're going to paste it. And then we're going to copy at the very end here and replace the first part of the date right up to the /. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and do the same for the end date. So we're going to choose end date. This is already going to be formatted, so you're going to copy that, go into the macro generator, paste it in here, and then copy the macro you just created, and you're going to paste it at the end right until the next ampersand. And we're going to hit update. Okay, so we're going to refresh the event detail page. Make sure you're actually looking at the actual event. So it looks like this. Otherwise, if you're just looking at the preview from here and you click on the link, it may not work. So let's click on add to calendar, and voila, you have the date, 7 p.m., 11 p.m. You have the title, you have the location. So we're good to go. That's it. Simple as that. So the way that you would do it differently for the Outlook calendar is just make sure you Google and find the Outlook calendar link, kind of like the Google one, and then that's all you need to do. Just replace and follow the same steps that you use for Google in order to do it for Outlook or Apple or whatever calendar system you want to implement this for. Yeah, that was a little bit of a handful, but I think it was totally worth it to be able to create a calendar with all those cool dynamic features. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave a like on the channel. It will really help us grow, and I can make more videos that are advanced just like this one. So thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.